Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Andy Park. I'm co-founder and vice president at TeamCentral, an intelligent automation company. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Paul Foster, founder of OnePlan, a company that helps event organizers by providing planning tools. Welcome, Paul.
Thanks very much. Great to be here and to join you today.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your company, OnePlan. Can you also, I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, explain the digital twin software connection that I've been reading about on your website as well.
Yeah, no problem. So we started out as a GIS mapping platform to enable event planners, event suppliers, venue owners to plan their events and plan their venues. So think about all the temporary overlay infrastructure, human resources needed and required to put on events. You need to plan where they all go. You need to get the approvals to do it from emergency services, maybe the local governments as well. So think of it a little bit like a Google Doc, but for event site planning and mapping. That's gone very, very well since the 3.5 years that we launched. Most of that time actually in a pandemic. And probably about 18 months in, we were working with a particular client. They said, look, we love what you do in the 2D system. What we'd really like to do is see that all in 3D. So we can walk around the venue, we can check out the venue. And one of the key things is that we can't actually go to the venue where our event is at the moment because it's a COVID hospital. So we're restricted from doing that. So we went away, connected up with a gaming engine, and then created a 3D world of our 2D platform. And the key thing is they're connected together in real time. So I haven't created two plan, it's still one plan, 2D system and 3D system. And everything's kind of stuck around after the pandemic, people really utilizing it heavily, and the huge cost savings, carbon footprint saving, and sustainability elements are really, really strong. So I would say that the pandemic was an accelerator, but yeah, that's really how it all came about from a real genuine need.
Yeah, the 3D capabilities look pretty impressive on your website. Looks really neat how you can kind of overlay. It almost looks like a CAD 3D background, with a CAD capability in there as well. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, but it kind of goes beyond there. So we can do very clever things like we can simulate the sun's position very accurately. So for the work in Paris, they want to know where the sun's going to be at 6 o'clock in the evening on, the 21st of July. We can do that. That's very important for things like how you position the field of play. Will it impact on the athletes at certain times? Will it impact on the broadcast cameras? So we can simulate individual broadcast camera capability. So the people planning where those positions are don't actually have to go to Paris. They can do it, from home. And the other element, advantage they get is if they went there today, it looks very different to how it will look during games time. So actually doing it in the digital twin is more accurate, more realistic than actually going to the venue.
Very interesting. So what was other than COVID being maybe an accelerator, what was the inspiration for this this solution, OnePlan?
My background's in crowd science. I've now worked on 6 Olympic Games. Paris is my number 6. So planning and predicting and profiling and planning for the large numbers of people that come to Olympic Games. I had a role on London 2012 where I oversaw the people movement planning for the Olympic Park. Now, all the planning that's done on Olympic Games and other major events as well, number 1 planning tool is PowerPoint. The number 2 planning tool is Excel. So what am I talking about there? Planning where all these human resources, signage, wayfinding, bins, tents, cabins, containers, barriers, and such like. It's done in PowerPoint because that's what everybody has on their computer. They cut and paste from the AutoCAD or from Google Maps, Google Earth, put it into PowerPoint, and then start planning in their own way. And there's obvious challenges with that. All those plans are disconnected from each other. If you're doing security and maybe I'm doing catering, cleaning, waste, we're not connected. And as soon as we develop that plan, it's out of date. Essentially, what we wanted to do is create one plan, single source of truth. So the single source of truth data that was live of all the planning information. So like I said before, it's a little bit like a Google Doc, where you can go in there and you can see it to this cursor. You can do the same in our system. You see it to this cursor and you can plan together in real time. And when we go up to Olympic scale, we're talking, thousands of users, not a few users for a kind of a small festival. So we can really scale it. Some people plan their weddings in OnePlan. We've had people plan vaccine sites in OnePlan, but then all the way up to an Olympic and Paralympic Games.
Wow. So you actually have, maybe I didn't understand this before, you actually have users that are planning different aspects of the event, logging in and collaborating on
Correct.
your platform. That's pretty slick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's not able to be achieved before now. It's kind of the first time it's been able to be achieved. So you can just imagine that the efficiencies on that, particularly if you're doing kind of repeat events. And people, they want to keep those events in one place and share it with the people who may be supplying the event, sharing it with the emergency services, and keep that for the following year as well. So it's almost treated a little bit like a Dropbox of all their event site plans.
Wow. What do you say that? What would you say are the factors that have contributed most to your success so far? And as you're thinking about that, any particular aha moments that have occurred that that say, wow, this really changed the course of how we're taking this thing?
Yeah, I'd say with the success we've had, it's down to our deeper understanding of the need. So we didn't start off as a tech company. We're all the people in the team, vast majority are all event planners, and they've got lots of experience from some of the biggest sports federations in the world, but then also, working on festivals. And so we deeply understand the challenges and problems. And I'd say, pretty much everyone on my team has worn a hard hat, a high-vis jacket, and carried barriers around. So they get it. And they're all, tech enthusiasts. So they understand how technology kind of benefit things. So I think that's the first thing. We deeply understand it, and we keep that use case, those user needs, right at the forefront of everything. In terms of the aha moment, I guess there's been a couple. Very early on, the first person who came on and put a credit card in and actually kind of subscribed and pay a subscription, that was a huge moment. It's like, okay, someone else other than just me
Right.
and our CTO actually think this is not a bad idea. And then it kind of grows from there. But yeah, I guess it's just at the speed it's gone. And for me, another big thing was when we started to have use cases outside of events. So when a city authority actually in the United States started planning vaccine sites, and we had another city authority in the US start planning queue systems in front of polling stations for the US election. Okay, it's kind of broader. Other sectors have this kind of same issue of not being able to collaborate together on a map, essentially. So yeah, that's then we started to realize actually this is kind of a lot bigger than we initially thought.
Really neat. What about could you comment on any hurdles that you've had to overcome that were particularly difficult? And maybe in context, help me understand, has data or access to data or data quality been one of those hurdles?
And so one of the first hurdles was, 6 months after we went live, the world changed. We hit the pandemic, and it's like, oh, well, we're in a bit of trouble here. There's going to be no events happening. But actually, it was a driver, because maybe events won't happen, but everybody was planning, and they were planning again, and planning again. So we quickly built in social distancing tools, so people could plan how many people could fit in an area according to their local social distancing requirements. I think at the time it was 6 feet in the US. We had 2 meters in the UK. I think India was 1.5 meters. It's all different all over, but we built in adjustments, how long queues would be to get into a venue. It automatically calculated that in a very, very easy and simple way. And we also built a social distancing calculator for stadiums, arenas. It was actually used by the Brooklyn Nets for the Barclays Center. So it's instantly kind of calculated for you which seats to fill based on your kind of rules. So we adapted quickly to kind of what was happening in the world. That was great. Gave us more credibility and got kind of eyeballs on the platform as well. In terms of data, I mean, we have a lot of data that's kind of inputted into the system. Big thing we're focused on is how we use that data to then benefit the end user. So we know how many crowd barriers are placed in Melbourne. Last week, we've had over 25,000 events planned in the system in 110 countries. So there's a lot of information there that we've got about how things are done. And what we're looking at is how we can use that data to make events safer and to make things more efficient. So yeah, it's a kind of a big focus on us. We don't, hold any kind of personal data on people, but we're particularly strong in terms of cybersecurity because of all the requirements we've had with Black Olympic Games. But yeah, I think the next step for us is to understand how we can use data better.
Mhm. Yeah, I've seen some of this open AI and Chat GPT and some things that have come out recently that might make things particularly interesting, from a data access standpoint. What would a typical, and maybe there isn't a typical example, but what's a typical customer engagement look like? How would you, if I had a big event that I wanted to plan, how would you engage with me as a customer, and what would that typically look like?
Yeah, it all really kind of depends how you've first come in contact with us. Quite often, it's Google advertising, or you might see something on Facebook or LinkedIn, because anyone can come to the platform today. You can come in and start using the system for free. One event, you can start planning it, and away you go. And we've had a big focus on making it as easy as possible for people to use things and get on board. I think there's lots of other good examples of that. Probably Canva is the most widely known one. If you go onto Canva, it's very easy to get what you want in terms of your design, and then get into the system and start using it really, really easily. And we've really focused on making this a system that anyone could use. You don't have to be like an engineer to use this platform, and we copy how things move to what people are kind of familiar with. So we make the onboarding, very, very quick. Now, there are some clients who need much more advanced functionality. They may need to put in restrictive security provisions, because they might say, well, actually, I'm the security team, I'm planning over here, but I don't actually want anybody else in the team yet to see what I'm doing, because we've got to be really, really cautious about the information. And when you go to an Olympic scale, 37 competition venues, over 50 functional areas, Olympic, Paralympic, some venues have multiple sports, over 100 non-competition venues. You can very, very easily see how it could get out of hand without correct permission structures and appropriate kind of sharing of data. So we adjust the system according to kind of scale of the event. Obviously, budget comes into that as well, and in terms of like how they want it structured. So yeah, a very scalable approach. It doesn't really get. It's more the enterprise clients who take the 3D on board, for example. And for them, it's where they can monetize the 3D side, and it makes it very, very compelling. So they've been using our venue twin models to sell hospitality space, to sell advertising space at a venue. And you've probably seen, the work we did with the LA Clippers, so digitally twinning the Intuit Dome, which opens up in 2024. So they've been able to showcase that venue to high-end clients for hospitality, and also sell the advertising space as well. And at the same time, ownership are able to walk around the venue, see exactly how it will look once it opens, and make any adjustments that they need to, rather than just looking at CAD plans.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I did see that the basketball court floor on your website. Is that what you're referring to, the Clippers?
Yes, yeah, it's the new venue in LA.
Yeah. As you engage with customers, I'm sure they have requests. They have features that they'd like to see, included in the platform. How do you balance the kind of this pipeline of customer requests with your product, vision and roadmap?
Yeah, it always a challenge. The customers are the best people to help you develop your product, because they have kind of real genuine need, and they're often very good at describing, like, we need this because of this, and it's often very, very kind of compelling. So we have a way of kind of like filtering that through the system in terms of, okay, will other people need this particular functionality, to filter that through, and then how easy and quickly can we adapt that and change that, and then also considering, if we do this, does it have a knock-on effect on something else, and then which will have a knock-on effect, a negative impact on any of our kind of customers. So we look on the knock-on effect, but we try to do that as quickly as we can. So our product team are just experts in that, in terms of taking the user requirement or the functionality request that comes in, getting a deep understanding of like why that's required, and then what it's going to take to kind of do it. And then we have our roadmap. What we all do, we kind of prioritize things. Obviously, there's bugs and fixes that need to happen, and they're dealt with very quickly. But in terms of feature requests, yeah, we have a kind of a product team that controls that whole kind of product roadmap, and then what's coming next. And our own team come up with ideas. I like to come up with, what the next thing might be and the big ideas. And, I get challenged on it. The product team will go, well, what do you want to do that for? That sounds nice, but is there a genuine kind of use case? And I think you've got to get your whole team into that mindset that, we want ideas. That's how things get better. And that's how we keep, at the top of our game. But you've got to come with a kind of, compelling reason. It's got to be evidence-based. And the whole business has that mindset, because anyone can bring an idea. It doesn't matter what kind of department you're in, but it all goes through that kind of same process.
Where would you see if you had to predict where event planning would be in 10-20 years from now? What's help share your vision? Where are you going with your product, and where do you see event planning being here in the 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, so I think people are now much more tech savvy than they were probably 3 years ago. And even my mother's using an iPhone and FaceTime and stuff, and that probably wasn't the case back in a few days. So people are just more comfortable with technology. And the other thing I would say is there's a more willingness to go into 3D. I always think people will like to plan in 2D because it's just a way that humans can see things really well, and you get the context of the space. But there's certainly more of a drive to move into 3D. The challenge with the 3D is the software's kind of been there all the time, not all the time, but for the last couple of years. It's the hardware catching up to be able to kind of process that. So, if you want to play some of the high-end computer games, you do need a pretty good machine, laptop or desktop. But as the hardware gets better in the data centers and in the cloud services, Wi-Fi gets better, it means that more of these high-end, very realistic environments can get into anyone's machine anywhere. And the challenges we have technology-wise are not with the software. It's really, what's the Wi-Fi connection like in that particular location? Can it get past the firewall? Can we whitelist it? How does it work? And how many concurrent users you want? So some of those challenges are hardware challenges, but the big players, they're all looking at it. They're all coming up with kind of solutions around that. We work very closely with Intel, for example, on the Olympic project. We know they're doing a lot of work in that area. So I think it'll be accessible to more people. And the other one, which I'm really excited about, is not just virtual reality, but augmented reality. So if I've got an event site plan that I've done, can I go out on site with my smartphone and actually hold it up and scan it and go, okay, that's what that sign will look like in a couple of months' time before the event. Okay, is the arrow pointing in the right direction? Is the typeface big enough? Like really basic stuff that you just don't get from a 2D plan or looking at a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, that looks about the right height and things. To bring in the augmented reality in, and there's it's quite big already in the gaming and fan engagement side, but there's a real opportunity to use it in the operational planning, and it will make things safer. It will help to drive more efficiency. So, and also with cost as well. So I think there's a really good reason to move into that.
Super interesting, very interesting. I was wondering if you're going to go down the augmented or virtual reality path. There's a lot of things being published about the metaverse and things and so forth, and so I could see that being a logical a path in the future for this kind of planning technology. This is really neat. So maybe I'll ask an open-ended question. What else would you like to share about OpenPlan that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, just it's available for kind of anybody, and we're really keen to work with different partners and explore some different sectors as well. We're really keen, for example, to get into refugee site planning, where we know that some people have kind of played around with the platform in that kind of area. But for us, we're open. We're looking to kind of visualize data in a better way. That's what we often talk to kind of clients about. So we're very open. We would like to work with all sorts of kind of different partners, help them to visualize their data better. We were talking to telephone providers, mobile telephone providers in France earlier about the Olympic project, visualizing some of the data they have in terms of people movement analytics. And that could be really helpful for planning the opening ceremony. First time ever, the opening ceremony for the Olympics in Paris will be along the river, not in a stadium. But all the people movement challenges, you can imagine how challenging that will be. But if we can get any data about how people move around the city today, that will help inform the planning and potentially also doing kind of real-time monitoring as well. So we're really keen to kind of work with partners, talk with partners about how we can help to visualize their data better. Because that's the way we make things better, and also it's mutually beneficial.
That's great, Paul. Thank you so much for spending some time today. I think OpenPlan sounds very interesting, and I'm really happy for your success so far, and wish you the best in the future. Thank you for joining, Paul.
No problem. Thank you for taking the time for the interview.
Really appreciated the conversation, and to learn more about CDO Magazine, please visit our website. We have additional interviews there. Thank you.